Hi, I'm Tom Gilson, Associate Editor with Against the Grain, and I'm here at the Charleston Conference at the Francis Marion Hotel in the Penthouse Suites, and I'm here with Katina Strauch, the founder of the conference, as well as Stanley Wilder, who is the Dean of Libraries at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Welcome to the Penthouse, Stanley.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, we're delighted to have you with us. As Katina and I were sitting down to kind of develop some questions for you, one of the first things we were interested in knowing was what's your take on the perceptions that faculty and college administrators have on libraries nowadays, particularly provosts, both faculty and provosts. What are those perceptions now?
Well, I just think this is a terrific question because if people ask me what I think the biggest problem is in our profession, my answer is always is low expectations on the part of our various constituencies. And what I mean by that is that whether people, be they faculty or administrators or users, whether they have in mind whether they're sort of indifferent to libraries or whether they love them, it's often couched in a group of assumptions about what kinds of things research libraries do that is 20 or 30 years old, and I think that it's what's changed about faculty or administrator perceptions. Basically, nothing's changed about them, and that's really the problem. So what we need to do, individually and collectively as a profession within our libraries, is to do whatever we can with the resources we have to show people what to expect out of a 21st century research library. There's lots of things we can talk about how you go about doing that, but I think that's really the most urgent problem before us. These low expectations can only lead to decline.
That actually leads to another question that we had in terms of what can librarians do to improve the situation.
Right. Yeah. I think that we have a terrific advantage in the sense that this thing, the internet, and the technological environment that we've got, everyone out there thinks that this is a threat to us, and really what it does is give us tools to do our traditional job in ways that make us much more effective than we could ever have imagined being before. So I think that when I'm talking about changing people's perceptions, this is really a pretty easy thing to do. All we have to do is turn these technological tools, networks, hardware, software, turn these things to showing faculty, students, everybody, how we can make them more successful. So I think that I'll just take a quick example of the rise of digital scholarship support, wherein libraries are taking a role that they never did before, or did in small ways, which is supporting the production of digital scholarship, which is really a different kind of animal. So the idea that there's this kind of library support there to help train graduate students in how to go about deploying these new technologies, and for faculty, I think this is a real boon to the research effort at our universities. They're going to be more successful because we're there, helping them provide the infrastructure and service support for this kind of work.
Where does that leave collections? Are they still key, or should we be focusing on services?
Collections are certainly key, but I think that the word that pops to my mind when I think about research collections these days is commodity, because we are just so far removed already from the era of closely tailored item by item selection, whether it's on the serial side and as we're seeing happening in the ebook side as well. Then if you add things like Hati Trust, which has potential to sort of commodify the vast expanse of out of copyright works that so suddenly what kinds of things can libraries do to differentiate themselves? I don't know that it's going to be on the collection side. There's an exception being rare and special collections, and that's that's an important area for differentiating an institution. But I think that what we're going to be looking at in the future is providing our constituencies with their core literatures in more or less commodity form, and then the thing that the place where we add value will be in our spaces, our services, the expert staff that we have to provide support, the pedagogy we do in regard to undergraduates. So the collections have to be there. They're going to be more commodity-like. They already are.
And then I guess that, Katina, do you have anything? I know you're really interested in collections. Is there anything that you want to add to that?
What do you think about how the collection should develop? Should they be databases or books, or where do you sit with the electronic versus print? And do you have any preference in terms of P and E? I know everybody thinks E is good for remote, and you really want both. But what is your feeling about or opinion of this? Where we're going with that?
I think the first part of this answer has to be that the proper role for the library, in a certain kind of sense, is to follow the discourse of the disciplines that we support in such a way that it really is the sociologists who decide what kind of literature they produce and in what formats. I don't mean that the library isn't part of the conversation and we're not simply followers. I don't mean to say that, but I think it's important to as a baseline to acknowledge that we don't have a print versus electronic decision to make in regard to particle physics. It just doesn't happen. I mean, we're not going to be invited to have an opinion on that kind of thing. So in the meantime, I think that we're in a better position to be thinking in terms of core literatures and quality literatures, and how do we go about seeing to it that that the best material that our people could possibly be using in the course of their teaching and research are available to them, and the format questions sort of following from that. Now, that's my generic answer to that question, but I have another example or anecdote which is that upon arriving at UNC Charlotte, I could see that our history department was struggling for lack of monograph funds. This was an easy question, a problem to fix, but when we went to them and asked them what kinds of material they wanted, what I got back was not lists of university press titles or individual titles or subject areas where we'd been lagging. It was all about databases. So I'm not saying that our history department doesn't need actual print books, but it's also a misconception to think that the print digital thing is going to fall out. Print equals humanities, social sciences. That it's just not that way.
There's been I was at a program yesterday called Tools of Change, and there was a fair amount of talk about the container doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
The format. What do you think about that? Do you think that's?
I just don't know. I think the container is going to matter a lot because there's so many things that you can do with the book technology, the print technology, and with the electronic technology. So I think that the digital is going to affect how people read. It's going to affect what kinds of research that they can do, and so the container is a new variable and a big variable for us that we're going to have to wrestle with. I really think that the long-term proposition for libraries is to be part of the process of opening up the digital format to help make it better, more useful in terms of support of curriculum and research.
And I think that's one problem that we have with these discovery services is they aren't as sophisticated as we need them to be so that we can discover what's inside the content inside our resources. I get very frustrated by the fact that you can't students, we just have everything that's in art and this list of art databases or art materials. We don't show them what's inside the materials.
Right.
And I'm not sure the discovery services, all of them, are able to do that at this point. Do y'all have a discovery service?
Well, we don't use a discovery service as a top layer for catalog access, at least at this point. We just announced that in June of this year we hope to go up with the WMS, the OCLC product, which will provide us with a discovery layer. I see what you're talking about, Katina, with the state of discovery, but I have to say, I've been the way I look at it is that we are so much better off than we were. I think that these discovery services are just leaps and bounds beyond the traditional ILS interfaces, going way back, and so actually I think that this is a trend that can't be stopped. I mean, we wouldn't want it to, but the point is that librarians are becoming more adept at mediating in ways that are more substantive, and as a parallel path, I think that search interfaces are also doing better and better at becoming more intelligent, more sophisticated, more context sensitive, and that kind of thing is going to be, it's going to make information so much more useful.
You're definitely accentuating the positive.
Well, yes, for now. Let's wait and see whether...
Well, that actually brings us to our next question. That's you're going to be presenting here at the conference regarding that search is really just a stepping stone to the ultimate goal of find. What exactly does that mean?
Well, it means different things to different people. The way I hear this, I kind of go back to, I have to pardon me for citing myself, but I wrote this 2005 article in the Chronicle of Higher Education about information literacy. It was a critique of information literacy, but in it, one thing I said was that librarians had tended over time to come to identify complexity in their search interfaces as the very substance of what they had to teach as librarians. They were teaching the obstacles. They were teaching the complexity, and this has always been a terrible foundation for our critically important pedagogical role that we play. Far more compelling, I think, for us to be using our subject expertise and our knowledge of our collections and our knowledge of the discourse of the disciplines to help make students more sophisticated. And that's an entirely different proposition, really, than thinking about how do I go about teaching Boolean. These mechanical search techniques that students never wanted to hear. They're certainly not. Even in 2005, they weren't in the market for this kind of help anymore. There's no more market for it. So actually, find greater than search, one of the things that phrase means for me now is that there's a certain kind of ideological battle that we've fought within libraries around this question of whether an interface dumbs things down. That phrase, do you remember this phrase? Ever hearing this? I don't hear it at all anymore, and I take that to be an enormous sign of progress. Nobody assumes that because of interface search is simpler, that it's dumb. I mean, this is progress for us, and so removing the mechanics of search from the heart of our instruction function frees us up to teach the real stuff, the stuff that can't be replaced by a machine. Actually, can't be. I mean, there's job security in this too. Capitalizing on our subject expertise and collection knowledge.
Is there any room for instruction at all?
No, I think there absolutely is. What I'm saying is that I think that pedagogical function is one of the most important things that the library does. Every year we've got a new crop of people who know nothing about how to do academic work. So the thing that we have to teach is I call it the discourse of the disciplines as a kind of a placeholder for this, but the point of the matter is that if you want to know who's important or what kind of sources are important in a particular discipline, that the answer is going to be different for philosophy than it is in biology, and we need to teach that kind of thing. Teaching people how to determine what's good, how to physically find it for the print materials that exist, making them more sophisticated, making them more like their professors, really.
It sounds to me like to do it properly, you would need to be working with the faculty to make sure you weren't really treading on their turf.
Yeah, it feels like there might be a space for overlap there, and I really don't intend for there to be. I think that the thing that an undergraduate needs to know is, if they've got a physics question, is there someone at the library who, not a physics content question, but a physics literature research oriented question, is there somebody at the library who will know what they're talking about, and will have seen the assignment, will have some kind of sense of what this kind of work means in physics. And once they have identified that sort of person, they go to them and they start their conversations at a much higher level, and that's really what we're after.
And it tends to become research associates for students and.
Sure, absolutely. Research associates, part of the team, really. I think that there's a role for, obviously the most important role in terms of content being the professor, but roles for librarians and others as a team working with students to help make their work better.
Do you see a role for librarians teaming with faculty and students and working together on projects? Is that something you're doing at UNC Charlotte?
Oh, absolutely. The easiest example here is the wonderful system of learning communities at UNC Charlotte, which are not merit-based. They're actually more targeted toward folks who are at risk, or with academic preparations where this extra kind of structure or support is helpful. So there are 16 or 17 of them running this semester. We've got a librarian in each one, and what that means is that the librarian meets with the students and the faculty, not every time they meet, but it's absolutely as a member of that team, and providing support in the context of the assignments that are given. So students start off being much more motivated to hear what the librarian has to offer.
So you have to have faculty buy-in on that.
Well, if you're a faculty member doing a learning community, then this is pretty well how it works.
Right.
Yeah, right. But they love it. They don't see this as a intrusion on their,
Yeah, the faculty.
we don't pose ourselves as subject as in terms of content of their classes.
But it does require, and Katina may want to comment, it does require a fairly good knowledge of your collections, whether they be print, electronic, so that you can disperse that information to students and faculty. guess I'm not sure if I have a question around that, but I'd be interested to know if you really think that collections play into this and that librarians need to be more collection-oriented or at least be more versed in their collections.
Well, I think that, I don't know about the word more. I think we've always done that. I mean, I just think that that's been a part of the, especially reference librarians' portfolio, the teaching side, public service librarian portfolio, forever, and it's a source of terrific strength. When you think about the skill sets that people bring forward into this new digital age, this is a piece that is very strategic. And it's not a thing that we have to invent or develop. This is we've got lots of things to develop or problems to address, but I think this part of it feels easy.
Okay.
Should collections librarians be involved in that as well as reference librarians?
Sure. Yeah. Well, actually, I'm thinking of part of this is just organizational, but as it happens, every that I've been to, worked at, has had a significant role in collection development for the subject liaisons, librarians, in such a way that they are choosing material and monitoring, the books and on serial side.
But they aren't normally involved in the teaching role in terms of helping students and patrons locate material, locate the best materials to look at. Reference is involved, but collection development hasn't been involved, hasn't played that role.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure that's the case. But I guess what I'm saying is that at least at UNC Charlotte, this is the way it works. With subject experts who are connected to departments, that they're actually doing collection development as a portion of their portfolio.
Right.
And we have the same thing.
Have the same thing,
but not everyone who has collection responsibility is working directly with students.
Right.
And I guess that seems to me what you were kind of getting at. And
sure, yeah. But at our institution, we have Chuck Hamaker,
Right.
and he doesn't have direct student contact, but oh man, what an institution!
You can't keep up with him.
What an institution!
You've already touched on this business of simplicity, and you've said in the past that librarians need to make our online systems as simple as possible, kind of to like the internet, make it as simple as the internet. How are we doing on that? You've kind of hinted at that, but how do you think we're doing on it? What else could we do?
I think we're doing wonderfully well with this. There's been so much progress that's happened, and all of it has been bloody in the sense that it's come at a cost. It's been a struggle. I think that simplicity might be simplicity is a reasonable word for talking about what I'm getting at. But another way of describing it would be natural, and the difference there is. I'm not sure what the difference is, but I'll tell you what I'm getting at is that in my time at the University of Rochester, we hired an anthropologist to help us work with how learn about how students were doing academic work, including using the electronic interfaces that we put before them. I have an anthropologist again at UNC Charlotte, and so the objective here is to bring qualitative data to inform our interface design and development in such a way that we keep a current kind of view of how not just students but faculty too, how they think about their work in such a way that we can make these interfaces more responsive to them. So this is a never-ending process, because the underlying, the how of what academics do is changing all the time. I really think that this is a problem that calls for sort of a qualitative research approach, and it's produced all sorts of insights. So.
But it sounds like it's outside the realm of just one library to do. Is it a collective effort or?
No, well, I think it, it probably, there are underlying principles that we unearth that might be of use all in every context. But I think that everybody who's got their own web page, homepage, is going to have to make thousands of decisions as to what to put where or how to say it, and this usability and this ethnographic sort of approach gives us a toolkit for making those decisions in such a way that we don't have to rely on gut instinct or how we did it back in the 70s when I was in college, or
Yeah.
actually wasn't in college in the 70s, but but you get the idea.
Yeah. One other thing that as you were talking, it struck me. Last year we had in one of our penthouse suite interviews, one of the interviewees indicated that he felt that the golden age of libraries was over, but he thought that we might be entering a golden age for librarians. Does that strike you as being a possibility, or is that just pie in the sky?
Scott Pluchak.
Oh,
That's
With Scott Pluchak, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot in that question, and one of my main research interest is working with the ARL demographic data, and I have a brand new batch of data that I'm about to release on the world next week, and there I can say that if we're entering a golden age for librarians, it's really it's going to be a different golden age than anybody could possibly imagine. And really, what I'm talking about here is that I think it's just going to be much more, apropos to be talking about a golden age for library professionals, because the skill sets and the types of jobs that are being done in libraries, the kinds of jobs that are being filled right now, are non-traditional. As a quick example, in 2010, 36% of new hires in ARL libraries were for functional specialist positions, which essentially, it doesn't, in essence, we could say IT people. And in 2010, we saw for the first time a marked decrease in hiring for reference librarians, which has been a rock solid, steady component of libraries. So you've got catalogers who have declined precipitously over the past 15 years and 20 years, but now we're seeing serious declines in the number of reference librarians among new hires, but also within the population as a whole. Again, in 2010. This is the first time this has happened in the data. The last time we looked was 2005, so we're talking about a very recent phenomenon. Possibly one that's connected with the recession, but I just don't think so.
What sort of role, what sort of implications does that have for library schools and training?
Oh, I just think there are huge implications for library schools. I have to say that there has been, up until 2005, there's been a long-standing trend wherein library professionals have library degrees to a decreasing extent.
Right.
Do you understand what I mean? That fewer and fewer librarians or library professionals will have library degrees. Most of them do in 2005. But it's declined. In 2010, that actually rose a bit, and I really don't know quite what the answer to this is. But my best guess really is that that the job market in 2010 was so bad that it was possible to get anything you wanted. If you had a job to offer, you could get anything you wanted, and you did. So you got the programmer who also had a library degree. That's just sort of speculation. But the question of whether library schools rather provide the background, the appropriate background for library professionals, this is becoming a serious question.
Yeah, I think that's really a crisis, crisis for library education.
Right.
Which should be
I'm very
included.
pro-library. I love library schools. I hate to say this, but I do think that this is not a new issue.
No.
I mean, I think everyone's
Right.
understood
Right.
that people entering libraries have different academic backgrounds than they used to. Library directors have certainly been very creative about filling professional positions with people who can actually, have the statistics background, financial background, or the programming background.
The specific expertise that
Yes.
they're
Yeah,
looking
absolutely.
for.
Absolutely.
This is pretty much our last question. If you were advising a recently appointed dean of libraries about how they should proceed, what are the key issues that you think they ought to be aware of today?
The key issues they ought to be aware of. I think that I actually would like to give you an answer that's not an issue, because I think that the piece that's missing in many, by no means all, director portfolios is a consciously developed vision as to what the library is and what role it plays in the institution that it's placed in. This is absolutely essential because if the library director can't articulate a persuasive vision, who we are and why we're here, if the director can't do that, the library staff can't do what they need to do.
Right.
The constituencies that the library serves isn't going to know what to expect, and bad things ensue. I really think that the most important thing that a library director can do is providing that persuasive vision about who we are and what we do. If you can manage to do that, then the all of these other issues that surround us will fall into place. You've got to have the vision.
Do you have any questions?
Last conference, we had Brad Eden here talking about a report that had been put out on the web about, negative statements about libraries, and, it was a report that was given to provosts. Have you been aware of something like that in terms of the vision of the library?
No, I'm sorry, I don't know what, I'm not familiar
He
with
sort
that.
of brought down the...
It was questioning, I guess provosts are obviously financially concerned and wondering about the investment in libraries and is it worth it, and it sounds like a library dean or a library director needs to be able to defend that in this. Have you found that to be the case, that you've needed to defend the value of the library within the academic community?
Well, I think that we're certainly constantly under pressure to do assessments of the sort that
return on investment.
Sure, that kind of thing. On the other hand, this could just be a function of the institution that I'm at right now. I don't think that the data exists that can properly justify the investment that institutions are already making in their libraries. And that's not to say that institutions are making a mistake. It's just that this is a difficult assessment problem.
Yes, how do you...
Let us, acknowledge that it's difficult enough to assess what a faculty member does in the context of a classroom in terms of long-term impacts. And so this is not a problem that's unique to the library, but we can acknowledge that we have this pressure to justify ourselves. At the same time, in my institution at least, we at least have a reasonable person who understands that we're not going to be able to draw a straight line from a dollar spent in the library to a particular kind of impact. But that's fine. I'm perfectly happy living in that kind of environment if all I get is the resources and support that I need to dazzle my community. we are going to do just fine. And so really, this is about sort of winning the hearts and minds of the folks that we manage to come in contact with, building our support, and making the case for 21st century library being an essential part of higher ed.
Yeah. I guess one last thing is there a question that we haven't asked that you would have?
The thing that flashes through my mind is that if my staff were to have seen this video, they'd be bored to tears because they've heard me say everything that I've said here. But actually, that's the answer to your question is that the things that are most important to me about what we do. I mean, we really have been talking about. These are the questions you've been asking are absolutely my day-to-day inner life, and so congratulations on that. Tells you what my inner life is like.
Well, Stanley, thank you very much.
Thank
we
you
really
so much
appreciate
for-
you coming
I
in
really
and talking
appreciate
to
it.
us.
It's been very great.
It's
very
been fun.
stimulating.
We've enjoyed it. Thank you.